It wasn't taped to the mirror or slipped beside my coffee mug. She didn't slide it across the dinner table like some dramatic intervention. No, it was folded, precisely, deliberately, and tucked behind my navy dress shirts, the ones I only wear for funerals and interviews. That's what made it feel more like a trap than a plea. I wasn't looking for anything, just a clean shirt for a client pitch the next morning. But when I slid the hanger aside and the rope parted, I saw the envelope wedged into the shadows like it had been waiting for me. My name was written across the front in her handwriting, slanted, neat, too careful. A performance in ink. Inside was a list. 18 numbered rules, typed in a professional serif font and double-spaced, like a corporate memo. The title at the top made my stomach turn. Guidelines for restoring trust and rebuilding our marriage. I read the first few lines standing there in the closet, breathing in starch and cedar like I was trying to ground myself in something real. But nothing about those rules felt real. They felt rehearsed, punitive, like a courtroom verdict masquerading as reconciliation. Rule number 1. No going out with male friends without prior discussion. Rule number 2. All social outings must include prior location sharing and post-event check-ins. Rule number 3. Location services to remain enabled on all devices at all times. Rule number 6. All passwords, phone, email, banking, social media, to be shared immediately and kept updated weekly. Rule number 9. 1 true session per week, minimum 1 hour, no sarcasm, full vulnerability expected. Rule number 13. Refrain from passive-aggressive comments or emotional distancing as a form of protest. 18 of them, some ridiculous, some vaguely insulting, and none that applied equally to her. There was no signature line for both of us, just her initials at the bottom, typed like a legal formality. She'd signed it like a contract, expecting my signature to follow. I stared at the page a long time, not in shock, just in stunned, exhausted recognition. This wasn't a proposal for healing. This was an ultimatum dressed in therapy language, a leash in the shape of compromise. And what struck me harder than the rules themselves was how she'd chosen to deliver them. She didn't hand it to me, didn't talk it through, didn't say, "Can we try something?" She'd hidden it, buried it, like it was contraband, or bait. I sank down onto the edge of the bed and rested the list on my knees. My first instinct wasn't even anger, it was sadness. Not at her, at myself, because the part of me that had still been holding on, the part that wanted to believe we could come back from whatever this was, fractured quietly as I read that page. It wasn't the control that broke me, it was the cowardice. Then I remembered something so specific it made my throat tighten. A note, 4 years ago, left in this same drawer. Handwritten, no envelope. It had said, "You make the world feel safe." I'd found it the morning I left for a conference in Atlanta, and I'd kept it in my wallet for months. That note had felt like truth. This list felt like strategy. I didn't confront her that night. I didn't ask for explanations. We had dinner as planned, chicken stir-fry, frozen vegetables, the last bottle of red from our Napa trip. She told me about someone at her office who got fired for harassment, and I nodded at all the right places, smiled even. But inside, I was cataloging everything, her tone, her comfort, the way she reached for her phone 3 times in 20 minutes. She was calm. Too calm. As if she'd already decided what part one was supposed to play. After she went upstairs, I folded the list exactly the way I found it. I didn't tear it or throw it away. I set it gently on her jewelry box, just enough in plain view that she'd know I'd read it. I didn't write a note or say a word. I wanted her to imagine my reaction. I wanted her to sit with the silence, because silence, I've learned, is the only thing that makes liars nervous. When she came to bed later, she didn't say anything. Didn't ask if I'd seen it. Didn't even turn to face me. Just clicked off the lamp and curled away like always. And I laid there, not hurt, just calculating. This wasn't a cry for help. This was a calculated maneuver. Control disguised as healing. And if she was making moves, then so was I. I've never been one for games. But if she was building a chessboard, she just made her first move. And I was already planning the checkmate. The morning after I found her list, we went through our routine like actors in a play either of us believed in anymore. She made coffee. I ironed a shirt. We barely looked at each other, but there was no tension on the surface, just that eerie calm that sits on top of something rotting. The paper was gone from the dresser. She hadn't mentioned it, and neither had I. She thought she was playing chess. I knew it was poker, and my face wasn't giving anything away. I left the house at 7:40 a.m., same as always, only this time, I didn't drive straight to work. I pulled into a gas station 2 blocks down and sat there, engine off, phone in hand. Not to track her, not to spy, just to think. I scrolled through our shared financial account while the morning sun bounced off the windshield. We'd always had one main account for household bills and groceries. Everything else, my consulting income, her bonus checks, went into separate personal accounts. It had never been a problem. Until now. Her spending patterns had changed. 3 ATM withdrawals in the last 2 weeks. All odd amounts, $180, $220, $260, all from the same machine across town near the warehouse district. The location pinged something in the back of my mind, but I didn't have time to chase it down yet. I took screenshots, saved them to a hidden folder under work files on my drive. I wasn't building a case yet. I was building memory. Memory that couldn't be gaslit or spun. Something to return to when she started rewriting the story, as I knew she eventually would. That night I made dinner. Not frozen pizza or takeout, actual dinner. Pan-seared salmon with roasted potatoes and salad. The kind of meal that says, everything is normal, while your brain is playing out 5 different conversations that haven't happened yet. She came home smiling, told me the salmon smelled amazing, kissed my cheek, then sat at the table like we were still us. We ate. We talked about her day. She mentioned a new hire at her office, a guy she described as a little too smooth, and laughed when I asked if she meant charming or greasy. It felt so normal it made my skin crawl. Not because she was pretending, but because she was so good at it. She didn't bring up the list. I didn't ask. We cleared the dishes together, rinsed them in quiet cooperation. But I watched her out of the corner of my eye. She wasn't anxious. She wasn't waiting for my reaction. She already knew how she wanted this to go. Around 10, she got a text. She glanced at it quickly, screen tilted away, and locked it before I could see. I didn't flinch. Just made a show of closing my laptop and stretching like I was winding down. She said she was going to bed early, then added, "Don't stay up too late, okay?" Like I was 12. After she was upstairs, I sat in the dark and thought about what she used to do when she was hiding something. In college, when we first dated, it was simple. She'd get quiet, pull away. But in the last year, the opposite had become true. She got affectionate. Overly so. Touches that felt choreographed. Compliments that landed hollow. She had learned that distance raised suspicion. But closeness? Closeness was cover. I stayed up the entire night, not in fear or heartbreak, but tracing patterns, behaviors, the subtle shifts. I'd always prided myself on being perceptive, but I realized then that I'd stopped noticing her a long time ago. And she'd used that blindness as camouflage. The next morning, I left early again, drove to the ATM she'd used, parked across the street and waited. I didn't know what I expected to see, maybe nothing. Maybe just proof I was losing it, but I needed more than receipts. I didn't get visual proof that day, but what I did get was more disturbing. While driving back, I remembered the warehouse district she kept withdrawing money from was near a cluster of luxury apartment buildings, the kind with valet trash pickup, rooftop fire pits, and short-term executive rentals, the kind you don't go to unless you're visiting someone, or hiding something. I didn't tell anyone what I was thinking. Not my brother. Not my oldest friend. Not even my assistant, who I trust with more than I should. This wasn't about gathering allies. Not yet. This was about clarity. And clarity is quiet work. That night, she came into the bedroom wearing one of the old shirts she used to steal from my side of the closet. She curled next to me, warm and affectionate, planted a kiss on my shoulder and whispered, "I think the rules are going to help us." I didn't move. Because I wasn't sure which part scared me more, that she believed that, or that she knew it wasn't true and said it anyway. The next Saturday, she left for brunch with Danielle. I kissed her cheek at the door, smiled like a man working through things, and watched her walk to her car. The front she put on, tight jeans, careful makeup, hair done to perfection, was more date-ready than hangout casual, but I said nothing. Just stood in the doorway long enough to make her glance back and wave, like we were still playing house. Once she was gone, I pulled out the notebook I'd been keeping behind the dryer. Each page a timeline. Every girls' night, every brunch, every evening gym session that ran oddly late, All of it logged by date, time, and detail. I wasn't tailing her. I wasn't hacking accounts, just listening, watching, letting the gaps fill themselves. The rules had become routine now. She was testing how far she could push them. She asked for my passwords. I gave her my phone, unlocked, and watched her scroll. She never found anything because there was nothing to find. I wasn't cheating. I wasn't hiding. That was her game, not mine. The trap she set was clever. She expected resistance. She expected arguments. That's what the list was built to provoke, pushback, so she could say I was uncooperative. But I gave her nothing. I followed the rules. I complied politely, perfectly, and while she relaxed, assuming I'd surrendered, I was documenting her every inconsistency. Thursday, she went out at 6:40 p.m., said it was a last-minute happy hour with coworkers. Didn't get home until 12:15 a.m., claimed they. Lost track of time. I checked the shared Uber account. Her ride ended at 10:48. The rest of that time? Unaccounted for. Friday night, she suggested a movie, wrapped her arms around me on the couch, whispered things she hadn't said in months. It wasn't affection. It was anesthesia. That weekend, I checked our shared credit card again. A $213 dinner charge to a wine bar we'd never been to. Timestamp. Same night as her. Work drinks. I looked up the restaurant's location. 2 blocks from the luxury apartment complex I'd marked on my mental map. I called the restaurant. Said I needed to confirm a reservation time for a billing dispute. The hostess was polite, a little tired. Yes, that was a table for 2 under your wife's name. I paused. Do you remember who she was with? She laughed softly. Oh, sorry, I don't think I'm allowed to say, though I think they come in regularly. Regularly. My pulse didn't spike. My hands didn't shake. I just thanked her, ended the call, and wrote down the date, time, and name of the hostess. Facts. That's what I was collecting now. No emotions, no accusations, just facts. That night, she came to bed early again. Curled up next to me. Told me she was proud of us for trying. I nodded. Said, me too. And when she fell asleep, I stared at the ceiling for hours, thinking not about who she was meeting, but why she needed me to stay blind. That was the real betrayal. Not the dinners, not the apartment, the manipulation, the deliberate, strategic erosion of my freedom under the guise of partnership. And I began to realize, the list wasn't just control. It was cover. So I tested her. The next weekend I told her I had to go out of town for a client meeting. One night only. I packed a small bag, left just before lunch, and drove 3 towns over to a hotel I'd booked under my business card. I left my location services on, just like the rules said, but I wanted to see if she would notice where I was, or if she'd just take the opportunity. At 9:17 p.m., she stopped checking my location. At 9:46, our doorbell camera caught her walking out in a different outfit than she left in that morning. By 11:20, she was back. Same clothes, hair slightly undone. She went straight to the laundry room, not our room. I returned the next morning and kissed her cheek like nothing had happened. She smiled. And I knew, this wasn't survival. This was strategy. She thought she'd turned the rules into a cage for me. But I was using them to watch her tighten the trap she thought she'd set for me. By the time I saw the apartment lease, I'd already known. I didn't expect to find it, not directly, but a few days after her third girls' night. In 2 weeks, I checked the mail while she was still in the shower. Most of it was the usual junk, catalogs, offers, credit card solicitations, but tucked inside was a slim, official-looking envelope addressed to her. Not our address, just her name, no. Mr. and Mrs. No familiar return address. I almost didn't open it. Almost. Inside, a renewal notice for a short-term rental unit on Ash Grove Avenue. Unit 306. From a high-end management company that didn't operate anywhere near our neighborhood. I took a photo and slipped the original back into the envelope, placed it inside a stack of bills she never checked. Then I sat down, pulled up their website, and started connecting the dots. The building was exactly what I thought. Luxury units designed for executives, consultants, traveling nurses, furnished, month to month, discreet. I called them, posing as someone inquiring about availability. Asked about waitlists, move-in costs, parking, then casually dropped. My partner said she might have stayed there. Her name's. I gave her full name. There was a pause on the other end, followed by typing. Oh, yes. She's the current tenant for 306. Renewed last month. Did she send you to look at a second unit? No, I said slowly. She didn't mention that. The woman laughed lightly. Well, you'll love the building. Quiet. Great views. A lot of couples rent together. I ended the call politely, numb. It wasn't just that she'd rented the place, it was that she renewed. This wasn't a panicked escape hatch. This was part of her infrastructure. It had been there for months. That night, she came home humming. She made pasta. She kissed my cheek again. She asked if I wanted to plan a weekend getaway to reconnect. The audacity of it almost made me laugh. But I nodded instead, asked her to check Airbnb options. I needed her distracted. After she fell asleep, I got out of bed and went to the office, pulled out every tax return, every monthly statement from the last year. Her solo account showed a series of consistent autodrafts, each labeled with generic terms like online services or premium rental fee, all of them hovering around the same amount, $2,100. Quiet, predictable. And there it was, the truth, bleeding through paperwork. She wasn't just hiding the lease. She was laundering it through carefully labeled expenses, buried in normalcy. That was the brilliance of it. It didn't look like deception. It looked like budgeting. The next morning, she made pancakes, wore my shirt again, asked if we could start doing weekly check-ins. Like the list says? I told her that sounded great. She smiled like we were healing. But the truth was still sitting in a manila folder on my desk. A lease in her name. A rental unit less than 20 minutes away. A second life, funded by the first. I kept playing along. Let her have her morning affection, her well-timed compliments. Let her think the plan was working. Because the more she believed she was in control, the more reckless she became. I didn't know what I was going to do with the lease yet. Not fully. But I knew this. Whatever she thought this marriage was, it wasn't built on forgiveness or truth anymore. It was now a negotiation between strategy and exposure. And I was finished playing gently. We hosted a dinner party the following Saturday. Her idea, not mine. 6 friends, 3 couples, all familiar faces from years of double dates, weddings, and vacations that now felt like ancient history. She set the table perfectly. Candles, cloth napkins, even a printed menu card like we were auditioning for domestic bliss. I played along again, smiled, poured wine, laughed in the right places. Because I wasn't there for the party. I was there for the friction, the accidental slips, the way people behave when they think they're safe. It didn't take long. Halfway through the second course, her friend Allison said something offhand while sipping her wine, glancing toward my wife. You're always at that place on Ash Grove, right? You love it there. Silence. Just for a beat. A flicker. My wife didn't look at me. She looked down at her plate, then smiled, practiced and too quick. Oh, just a coworker's place. I visit sometimes to decompress. Allison blinked, slightly confused. I thought it was yours. Another pause. This time longer. My wife laughed, light and brittle. No, I just say that because I'm there so often. You know how it is. Everyone chuckled. The moment passed, but not for me. Because now it was out. The slip, the whisper in front of witnesses. And worse than her cover story was the fact that she had one ready. Later, when the others had left, and we were cleaning up in the kitchen, I waited to see if she'd bring it up. She didn't. Instead, she asked if I thought the salmon was overcooked. No, I said calmly, drying a plate. But your story about Ash Grove definitely was. She froze. Just for a second, then smiled tightly, like she didn't quite hear me. What? I turned toward her, plate in hand. You said it's a coworker's place. Allison said it's yours. Which is it? Her face didn't crack. That's what struck me, how quickly she composed herself. I crash there sometimes, okay? She said. It's not a big deal. Sometimes I need space. You're not the easiest person to be around lately. That was her pivot. Blame me. Make it about tension, discomfort, emotional need. I let her have it, for now. Just nodded and said, got it. But in my head, I was connecting the dots faster than I could write them down. The lease. The dinners. The gap between her Uber drop-offs and her returns. The increasing affection when she sensed I was pulling away. She wasn't just cheating. She was staging an exit, while keeping me calm and seated until her other life was fully arranged. And that's when it hit me, she wasn't alone in this. She'd been too confident, too smooth, too prepared. So I started reviewing conversations, memories, the people around us. And one name kept coming up, someone I hadn't suspected before, someone I'd trusted. My best friend, Mark. He'd been more supportive than anyone through our rough patch. Kept checking in, offering advice that always bent toward, give her space, be more flexible, don't make her feel trapped. And suddenly I remembered a moment from 2 months ago, Mark casually mentioning how beautiful the views were on Ash Grove, though I'd never seen him in that part of town. It was a throwaway line. Nothing at the time. But now it felt like a breadcrumb. So I tested the waters. The next day, I called him, said I'd been thinking about getting a place in that neighborhood, mentioned the building by name, listened carefully. There was the faintest hitch in his voice, just a beat too long before he said, "Oh yeah? That area's really up and coming." Not a normal reaction, not his usual easy confidence. I filed it away, quiet, because I wasn't ready to accuse anyone yet. But I was ready to uncover the truth, no matter how deep it was buried. I waited a week before making my next move. I needed certainty, not suspicion, not intuition. I needed irrefutable facts, something that couldn't be spun with tears or excuses or half-lies wrapped in therapeutic jargon. During that week, I did everything by the book. I played the perfect partner, complied with her rules to the letter. I left my phone unlocked, asked for permission before going out, engaged in the weekly truth session with practiced vulnerability. She smiled more, touched me more, kissed me like she was falling in love all over again. But it wasn't love, it was sedation. Meanwhile, I was preparing the confrontation, not just for her, but for Mark too. I visited the apartment building in person, told the concierge I was there to deliver documents for Emily Carter, Unit 306. He waved me through like I belonged. The unit was on the 3rd floor. I didn't knock. I didn't need to. I only needed to confirm one detail. The hallway was quiet, but on the doorframe of 306, a small, standard label displayed the leaseholders' names, Emily Carter, and beneath it, Mark Reed. There it was. Not a theory. Not a shadow. Truth. They'd co-signed. Together. No aliases, no dummy names. She hadn't just been cheating. She'd been building a second life with my closest friend. I took a photo. Another. A close-up of the label. I walked back to the elevator with the kind of calm that only comes from emotional lockdown. The kind of calm that means you've crossed the point of no return. I sent an email to myself with the photo, then one to my lawyer. Subject line: preliminary divorce materials, evidence attached. That Sunday morning, I made coffee for both of us, set the table. Scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice, our usual reconnect ritual. She came downstairs in a robe, hair slightly wet, humming something under her breath. "Smells good," she said, sliding into her chair. "I like this version of us." I poured her coffee and slid the manila folder across the table. No build-up, no preamble. "What's this?" she asked, eyes narrowing. "Your exit packet," I said, folding my hands. She opened it slowly. The lease copy was on top, then the photo of the door label, then the bank withdrawals, restaurant receipts, and finally, a printed screenshot of the building's website showing the listed co-tenants for 306. She didn't speak, not right away. Then, "You went there?" "Yes." Her voice cracked, just slightly. "I didn't mean to get caught," I finished. She flinched. "I gave you a chance to come clean," I said, my voice calm but deliberate. "You gave me a rulebook instead." She didn't answer at first. Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. There was no sorrow in them, just calculation. I watched her scan the table, scan my face, looking for a move, a way to pivot. "Mark came to me first," she said finally, her voice tight. "You were distant. He listened. I didn't want this to happen, but it did." I cut in before she could twist the blade with apology. I leaned forward slightly. "Repeatedly. In your second home. I didn't want to hurt you," she whispered, her eyes now fixed on the table. "You didn't want to lose your cover," I said, letting the truth settle like ash between us. "You made a list of 18 rules to keep me occupied while you built a new life with my best friend. That's not repair. That's sabotage." She reached for my hand. I pulled it away, slow and final. "There's no conversation after this," I said. "You'll get the official papers this week. My attorney has everything, including the records of asset transfers you didn't think I noticed." That got her. Her expression cracked, not from grief, but from panic. She opened her mouth to protest, but there was nothing left to say. I stood, picked up my keys, and left her sitting there in front of a breakfast that was never meant to be shared. I didn't look back, because you don't mourn a performance once the curtain falls. You just walk out of the theater. I could have ended it there, filed the divorce, handed the evidence to my lawyer, walked away with the quiet dignity of someone who chose truth over revenge. But something kept gnawing at me. Not rage. Not heartbreak. A question. Why had Mark risked everything? He wasn't impulsive. He wasn't the kind of man who acted without motive. If anything, he'd always prided himself on being measured, controlled, the voice of reason when I was too stubborn to see straight. So I started digging. Not out of anger, but out of necessity. A few days after the confrontation, I made one last quiet move. I called the property manager at the Ash Grove building, posing this time not as a potential tenant, but as a co-tenant needing clarification for legal proceedings. I just need confirmation of who's listed on Unit 300 and SIXS lease, I said, voice calm, lawyer-like. For court documentation. The voice on the other end didn't hesitate. Emily Carter and Mark Reed. Lease start date 7 months ago. Both are primary tenants. That confirmed what I already knew. But then she added, almost offhand. They were referred by a corporate account. Something in finance. I'd have to pull it up. One of our partnership firms. I froze. Mark worked in finance. He'd handled our joint investments for years. Mutual trust. Total access. I thanked her, hung up, and logged into the financial dashboards I hadn't touched in months. The ones Mark used to monitor our retirement and long-term planning. He'd convinced me to let him streamline everything under a single brokerage platform last year. Said it would be easier, cleaner. Now I knew why. I ran a check through our retirement fund statement history. 2 accounts were missing. Not closed. Just, no longer under my name. Transferred quietly into new custodial accounts with matching balances, but slightly altered identifiers. Enough to redirect ownership without raising internal flags. Legally gray. Ethically nuclear. I sat there in front of the screen, pulse steady, fury cold. This wasn't about love. Not for Mark. Not even for her. This was about insulation. About consolidating her exit, financially and emotionally, with someone who could cover every angle. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd outsourced the entire plan to someone who knew how to weaponize my trust. I compiled the full trail, transfer receipts, email confirmations forwarded from my old joint inbox, a paper trail subtle enough to escape casual audits, but not a determined one. I handed it all to my attorney under one instruction: protect everything that's mine. Freeze what can be frozen, flag what can be traced. And then, quietly, I met Mark face to face. I didn't scream. I didn't threaten. I didn't ask why. I handed him a single envelope with a copy of the financial evidence. He glanced through it, pale, speechless. You broke a 20-year friendship for her, I said quietly. And for what? A lease, a split of my future, and a woman who needed a handler more than a partner? He tried to say something. I held up my hand. This isn't a negotiation, I said. It's a notification. Then I walked away. The fallout was swift. The financial transfers were halted. Arbitration was filed. Friends scattered, some blaming her, some blaming both of them. A few sent messages of support. Most stayed silent. I didn't fight for everything in the divorce. Just what mattered. The home. My name. My business. My future. She lost more than she expected. More than she prepared for. And Mark? He lost more than I think he's realized yet. Because when you build a second life on someone else's blind trust, there's always a price. I didn't just walk away stronger. I walked away sovereign.